Hello and welcome to another episode of Purina's Livin the Farm Life. We are here at the Purina Animal Nutrition Center in Gray Summit, Missouri. We're at our pristine research lake. This is where we develop new feeds and figure out how to grow big fish. I'm here with Bob Lusk. He was one of our Purina Aqua ambassadors, editor of Pond Boss magazine.
That's right.
And fisheries biologist. And Bob, you've worked with us to help develop this lake. And as we see here, it's hard to believe that 2016 is when we reclaimed this lake.
Yes.
And made it a pristine research lake.
It's pretty amazing. And it's just like you. You know, you may have that pond or lake in your backyard and you want to do something with it to make it better. And what Purina's done here is not only set the stage to do some research, but they wanted to grow fish just like you do.
Yep.
You know, so out here, they renovated the lake. Great happy water. I call it happy water. You got to have that to start. And then they created great habitat. And now, here we fast forward a few years and they've got some bass like that, yep, some hybrid stripers like that, big bluegills, just like what you want to do back at your lake.
Right. So what we want to talk about today, as we talk about lake quality, water quality that you mentioned, is we recently purchased some property adjoining the research farm.
Okay.
And it happens to have a lake about this size on it.
Just happens
to have about a 6-acre lake on it, but it's probably more like what you might have at home.
Okay.
Hey, I own some land, I got some water on it. I want to grow big fish, but I got to have happy water.
Yes.
So why don't we jump in the gator? We're going to drive down there and you tell us what we would need to do to have happy water.
So let's go start at the start.
All right, let's go do it. All right, so here we are. This is the new property. We've owned it for about 1.5 years. We're in spring right now, so it's cool weather. We haven't hit the hot, humid, summers that we have here in Missouri. Normally, I would tell you, Bob, when I come down here in the summer, last year, this is solid algae.
Okay.
Solid green.
Okay.
So you can see there's a lot of runoff that comes into here. Our lake actually flows into here ultimately through the creek. So if this was a project,
yes,
what would you tell us to do here? What's the first thing we ought to look at?
The first thing we do is evaluate. I like to start with goals. What's the mission? Why do you have this property? What is it you want to do with it? And then we look at 5 really fundamental principles. The first one is happy water.
Okay.
I call it happy water. If the water's not happy, if the water's not healthy, things are not going to grow well in it. None of the other 5 principles matter at all. So I like to start with water chemistry tests, looking for clues like algae. Is algae growing in it? Are you seeing aquatic plants growing in it? What's growing in it? And that's all temperature related. So as we get further into the spring, toward the summer and the water temperature rises, that triggers all kinds of growth. So we like to analyze that, see what it is, figure out about the water. Then the next thing is the kind of habitat. As goes the habitat, so goes what lives in it. The next thing after that's the food chain. You know, if that algae doesn't have the food it needs to eat, it isn't going to grow. Same with fish. If we're not feeding fish properly, they're not going to grow. Right. So if we don't have the food chain, the fourth thing is the right kind of genetics. You know, we're in Missouri today, so I want to be sure we've got the right genetics that thrive in Missouri. And then the fourth thing is a harvest plan. Look at a lake like you look at a garden. You know, you're going to set the stage for it to grow a crop, basically. At some point, you got to harvest some fish, or harvest plants, or whatever's going on in there. So that's the 5 fundamentals, but it all starts with good, happy water.
Right. So the first thing we want to do is do a water sample.
Yes.
And then send that off to a lab,
yes,
have it analyzed. And I'm sure working with your local Purina dealer, you can get that done.
Yes.
And then figure out what we need to do.
Yes,
so, and then work with the local dealer to put together a plan to have happy water.
That's right.
And then figure out what kind of fish to put in there and
That's
grow
right.
big fish.
That's right. And you go to pondboss.com with a lot of free articles, a lot of good advice, a discussion forum. So ask questions. That's what you need to do. Like, what do you test for with your water? You know, somebody can help you with that, but that's where it all starts. And then you create a game plan to get you from where you are to where you want to be. That's pond management.
All right. So if you have a lake at home, a body of water, whether it's a small pond or a bigger lake like this, and you want to enjoy it, and you want to be able to take the family out and catch a big fish, it all starts with water.
That's it. That's it.
So let's figure out what kind of water we got. So hey, to find out more about taking care of your lake, taking care of your pond, growing big fish, go to purinamills.com or pondboss.com. Like you said, a lot of great stuff there. Or be sure and stop by your local Purina dealer.